Assalamualaikum students. I hope all of you are fine and doing good with your studies. Today we are going to learn about computer hardware. This is chapter number 2 from your book. So let's start. First of all, let's have a quick recap from the content of the previous classes. In class 6th, we have studied about input and output devices. We all know that computer consists of two main parts. One is computer's software and the other is computer's hardware. When we talk about computer's hardware, we can classify it into two main parts. One is input devices and the other is output devices. We have studied about these input and output devices in class 6th and 7th. The input devices are basically used to give data and instructions to the computer, and output devices are used to get the results from the computer. So it means that when we give data and instructions to the computer, it is processed and then the processed data and information is given to the output devices. So it means that between this input and output operation, there is an other operation in between, which is processing. And this processing is also done by the computer hardware. So in class 6th, we have studied about these input and output devices, and in class 8th, we are going to study about this processing device. So in second term, we will cover chapter number 2, which is about hardware. Today we are going to start this chapter, and we will also study chapter number 3, which is operating system. Now, if you can see that what will we study in chapter number 2. In chapter number 2, we will study central processing unit or CPU as processing device, and we will also cover some storage devices or computer memory. So let's start this chapter. Okay, first of all, have you ever thought how does a CPU works? Here we need to understand a concept of system unit and CPU. Normally we call the CPU it as the rectangular box which is placed besides your monitor. We call it as CPU, which is wrong terminology for this rectangular box. This rectangular box is basically the system unit. A CPU is the small square chip, and this CPU chip is placed on the motherboard, which is present inside the system unit. All the processing which is performed inside the system unit is done by the central processing unit or this small chip. It is a small chip which is square in shape and its normal size is 1 inch. It works in 4 basic steps. Whenever some instruction is given to the computer, that instruction is processed in these 4 steps, and these are fetching, decoding, executing, storing, and this cycle remains go on. It is also known as CPU execution cycle. It means a single instruction is processed by CPU in these 4 steps. Now, let's go through the definitions of these steps one by one. Here you can see the detailed diagram of CPU execution cycle. The first step of CPU execution cycle is the fetching. Fetching is the process of obtaining program instructions or data from the memory. It means that the instruction which is to be executed is required to be fetched from the memory, or maybe we require some data to execute an instruction, so that data or the instruction itself is fetched from the memory. Fetch means to get or to obtain. Then after fetching the instruction or the data, we perform decoding. Decoding basically refers to the process of translating the instruction into signals that CPU can execute. We all know that computer understands only binary language. The instruction or data that is fetched from the memory is decoded, which means that it is translated into the form that CPU can understand and executes the instruction. After decoding, the instruction is processed. So, the processing of an instruction is known as execution. So, executing is the process of carrying out the commands. It is the main process of running the instructions. After execution, the storing is performed. In storing, the process which is used to store the results into the memory. When the instruction has completed its execution, the results are to be stored, and these results are stored during the storing process of CPU execution cycle, and after this again fetching process is conducted. It is an ongoing process. The instructions are coming one after another, so all the instructions goes through these 4 phases in order to complete its execution. As all the time instructions are coming and executing, so it is an ongoing process which is taking place inside the CPU to complete the processing. That CPU chip has basically three parts. One is control unit. We can write it as CU. Second one is arithmetic logic unit. In short, we write it as ALU. And the number third, processor's memory unit. The memory which is held by the CPU is called the registers. So, a CPU is divided into its three parts. Number 1, CU, number 2, ALU, and number 3, MU. Let's discuss them. Through this picture, you can understand the components of CPU in much better way. First of all, you see that we have input devices, and these input devices are combinedly known as the input unit. These devices may contain keyboard, mouse, scanner, mic, or any other input device. On the other hand, we have some output devices, and these output devices are collectively known as output unit. They may be monitor, printer, speaker, or any other device. Between input and output, there exists a CPU where the actual processing takes place. We give the data from input devices to the CPU. Now you can see that CPU has three parts: ALU, CU, and memory unit or registers. That data comes to the CPU. CPU processes that data and transfers the results through the main memory to the output devices. So, with this picture, you may better understand the components of CPU. Let's revise them. CPU is the central processing unit which has three basic parts: ALU, CU, and memory unit, which is also known as the registers. Here you can see that the portion which is indicated with the red blocks, these red blocks are representing the memory. Registers are the memory which is present inside the CPU chip, and this CPU is also attached with the primary memory, and the primary memory is the RAM chip, random access memory. So CPU has its own memory known as registers, and this CPU is also linked with the primary memory of the system. Okay students, now we are going to discuss the components of CPU in more detail. First of all, control unit. Control unit controls and coordinates among all the components of CPU. It issues control and command signals. As its name tells, control unit. So it means it has to control all the components of a CPU. To control the components of the CPU, it generates or issues the control and command signals. It performs the functions like it sends data and instructions received from input devices to the memory. Yes, as you have seen that the data and instructions are received from input output unit to the memory. Then it transfers data and instructions from memory to ALU for processing. Then it sends back processed data called from ALU back to the memory. The data is coming and that data is going back to the memory, and in the end it transfers the processed data towards the output devices. Okay, now again understand the flow of processing done by the control unit. Number 1, the data is received from input devices to the memory. Now the memory transfers this data and instructions to the ALU for processing. ALU sends back the processed data to the memory, and the results are then transferred to the output unit to display it to the user. In this way, the control unit works. The second part of CPU is ALU. ALU stands for Arithmetic Logic Unit. It performs all the arithmetic and logical operations. The arithmetic operations include addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division. They also include finding of powers, like if I want to find 2 raised to power 3, this will also be performed by the ALU, and it also finds the square roots. These are the arithmetic functions. And the logic operations include the logic gates like NOT operation, AND operation, and OR operation, and the comparisons like less than, greater than, less than or equal to, greater than or equal to or not equal to, or are also performed with the help of ALU. In simple words, we can divide ALU in further 2 parts, that is AU, arithmetic unit, and the second is LU, that is logical unit. So arithmetic operations that are performed by ALU are addition, subtraction, multiplication, division, finding powers, and square root. And the logical operation contains logical gates like NOT operation, AND operation, and OR operation. They also include the logical comparisons like less than, greater than, less than or equal to, greater than or equal to, or not equal to. Okay, in this slide, we will understand how ALU works. First of all, data comes from the input unit to the main memory. Then main memory sends that data to the CPU. In CPU, it sends the data to the ALU. For example, if I have entered a number 30, so 30 will go to the ALU and 30 will be stored in a register named as AC, accumulator register. Then the second number, which is 50, and this second number is saved in another register known as DR. So here, if I am going to add 30 plus 50, 30 is stored in AC and 50 is stored in DR. AC and DR both are the registers. Now this 30 and 50 is sent to the ALU. ALU perform the respective operation which is defined by the user. The operation is performed either addition, subtraction, division, multiplication or comparisons. Then ALU will send the result to the register AC, that the result of 30 plus 50 is 80. Now this 80 is now sent again to the main memory and the result is displayed on the output unit. Here we are going to revise it again. Now watch it more carefully. First of all, data is coming from input and output unit. That data goes to the main memory. Then from main memory, the first number, that is 30, is sent to the CPU, and in CPU that 30 will be stored in the register named as AC. Now the second number is 50. 50 is also stored in another register named as DR, data register. Now the next step is the data 30 and 50 is now sent to the ALU. After the data is received, the CU will help to control and the operation is selected, either addition, subtraction, division, multiplication or comparison. As we have to perform addition, so addition is selected. ALU perform the addition and send back the results to the AC. The results are always saved in the accumulator register. Yes, the result is sent to the AC and then this result is again sent back to the main memory, and this main memory will send result to the output unit. So with this we have completed today's lecture. I hope you have betterly understand the concept of CPU and its parts. So here is the task that you have to do. First of all, you have to read the content from your book and underline the important points. Then attempt the following questions. What are the main components CPU? Give one line definition of each. For this, you can take help from today's lecture. Question number 3. Write down the main functions of control unit. For this, you can take hint from your book, page number 16, and you can also find help from today's lecture. Question number 4 is to draw and label the diagram of CPU execution cycle. You can draw this diagram from your textbook, page number 14, or from today's lecture. I hope you have understand it well. Please submit the task in your class group. After submission of the task within 24 hours, you will be marked as present. Otherwise, you will be marked as absent. Have a good day. Thank you.